Hey, old Blackpool and all that. Any road. You've been a wonderful audience. That's John Lennon, by the way, just in case you were wondering what I'm gibbering on about. Well, hello and welcome into this Saturday night's MBE podcast. I am Jonathan C. Walsh, formerly called Cecil by my sister. Back in the day, I can assure you it stands for Christopher, though I'm your host for this here stream. And to my left is Stephen John McLaughlin. He's the co-host on the podcast stroke stream tonight. Stephen, we're discussing Quentin, and I'm going to make sure the intro doesn't come back to haunt me again, even though I won't be changing the scene at any point in this actual stream. We're discussing Quentin Tarantino, Stephen, and speculation over seeming indecision with Quentin, and we've got a nice little thing here, and I'm just going to read it. Is the decision to shelf his final film an ending in itself? Because he's taking so long, Stephen. It's been such a long time since Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I want to say it's been a good, 4, 5 years? If not, 6 years?
Yeah, 2019.
That's an incredibly long time, even for an event director like Quentin Tarantino. That's a long, long time. He had this all mapped out, this final movie, the Movie Critic. It got cancelled. I think I've got a quote of him saying it was scrapped because it was too much like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He didn't want to rehash old ground. It'd be a nostalgia fest or whatever. By all accounts, this Movie Critic figure, he was basing the film on someone he was aware of back in the day. So he didn't want this sort of, I don't know, nostalgia fest, for lack of a better term. But Stephen, what's your thoughts? Just initially, I'll just throw this over to you, sort of brief thoughts. We're going to dive deep into it. Do you think this could be an ending in itself? This decision to shelf after such a long time? Is the guy losing his sort of the groove of directing, of coming up with a movie and putting it out to the masses? We'll get into it deeper though, but just an initial sort of thought.
Yeah. John, I think no matter what happens in terms of what he brings to the fold in terms of his last film, I think it's not going to be a bad movie. But the concept of obviously the Movie Critic didn't really excite me in any way because, as you mentioned, Quentin's he's went and done different genres and sometimes genres within genres in his films, and certainly this was closer to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood in terms of the sort of nostalgic way that film portrayed, a certain period in time and certainly a period in the industry as well. And I think just in terms of, there's actually a fly in here or something, I don't know what it is, kind of random, buzzing in my ear. I better not be happening to that trailer we reacted to.
Yeah, it says Rajamouli. It's Quentin Tarantino. He's manifesting as a fly in the room.
And what I'm about to say, but John, I think in terms of that concept, I wasn't really excited about it, and I'm kind of glad he's kind of going back to the drawing board on it. But I think in terms of, we've covered obviously the announcement for the last 4 years or whatever it is on our news show, and we've discussed in terms of what we would like to see and what it could possibly be, but it's if it's going to be your last film, this is something that we said as well. Don't announce it. Don't announce it to be your last film. Just go out and do your last film and then disappear into the sunset, which I don't think he'll do either. I think he'll still be in and around the movie industry, but I'm kind of glad this has been sort of vetoed and it's back to the drawing board, I would imagine.
Yeah, it will be, Steve, because he's adamant he's doing 10 movies, and look, it is a nice sort of bookend. 10's a nice number. I don't know exactly how many Stanley Kubrick did. I know it was a small amount. I mean, I could go back in my mind's eye and try and count them, but I'd probably make an arse of it. But he was a high-caliber director who didn't make a lot of movies, and he got out. Presumably, he felt on top, and I know Tarantino's discussed it before, that directors have a shelf life, and if they overstay their welcome, they inevitably start dropping. And the quality of the content they're putting out to the masses obviously depreciates. And we've seen that, to be fair, with the likes of Spielberg to an extent, and certainly Ridley Scott, for sure. He's greatly diminished as a director. He's putting films out that he would never have released 15, 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
So we've seen it in real time. Directors, high caliber directors, just lose the drive, lose that edge. And your other man as well, who I'm blanking on. There was another one, worked with your man who played Jaime Lannister in Game of Thrones. I'd need to search him up, but maybe Coppola. That isn't Coppola, it's someone else, but he's kind of lost his edge as well, so it's definitely a thing, and I can understand it. So
yeah, I think
you can understand this desire to have 10 films, and I certainly think the shelving of this is a sign he's going to work on something else.
Yeah, I think it's slightly different for Tarantino because it's almost a world or a universe that he's created over these 10 films, and you could say that it's unique in that sense. It's probably going back to the sort of the ways that Steven Spielberg used to be, in terms of original sort of stories and stuff like that. But over the last few years, you're getting directors like Spielberg tackling things like West Side Story, and Ridley Scott going back to franchises that are already established, whereas Tarantino, I'm almost glad it's not going to be Kill Bill 3. I'm glad that's not going to. I don't think that's going to be a thing. As much as I would have liked to have seen it maybe about 10 years ago, I think that's past that time. I certainly don't want it to be his last film.
It just works, Stephen, as a duology as well, doesn't it? I mean, he said numerous times he's seen that as a two-part movie, and he released it as a two-part in one sort of release. It was part one, part two, but it was one movie. It was presented as one movie, 3 acts over 2 movies. To introduce a third film, and I know we spoke about it in the past, where it could potentially be the daughter coming back to get retribution for what happened to her mother during that epic fight sequence. It just wouldn't work for me. But it was always about the bride. It was always about her getting revenge.
It's always about Bill.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, you've done that. You've sorted that out in 2 films. There's no need to get back. Tarantino's not the type of guy that would go back and do that. He isn't easily manipulated. He's a very strong character. And creatively, Stephen, a very unique guy. He only brings out unique content. We spoke about it before we came on. His movies are phenomenal. I can't really pick one movie out. The Hateful Eight was the closest I got to being a little bit bored. I mean, I like to talk in movies. It was the closest I came. But even watching that, you have to take a step back and say, fucking hell, technically what this guy's creating here is astonishing. I mean, it's just sensational.
Some might say Death Proof, but Death Proof's one of my favourites. You're absolutely right. And the thing I've always loved about Tarantino films is that the actual plot to these films aren't anything overcomplicated. The way that he formats it sometimes, and as in the likes of Pulp Fiction, yes, he kind of reinvents the sort of format of the storytelling, but in terms of the actual story, if you think about it, it's just people hanging out and doing the things, whether that's criminal or not. That's what they're doing. But it's always been about the characters. It's always been about the dialogue, and it's always been the writing is the most important thing. And I always felt, as much as I like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and as much as I like Inglourious Basterds, I always thought those endings were a bit. Well, in an ideal world, that is what would have happened.
Well, that's why I brought that up, Stephen. That's up. So
we'll
get into that.
It's not really what I like in Tarantino films, although I did enjoy the violence in those films.
No, I agree, Stephen. He's obviously trying to rewrite history and give us a better ending, because everyone hated Hitler. He was a fucking arsehole. And so was all these sort of sidekicks and cohorts. We're all wrongings in society, sexual predators and murderers and just the worst of the worst, sort of gathering together under a banner of sort of evil. So understandably, Quentin wanted to try and do something about that retrospectively through the art of film, and he did it with Inglourious Basterds. And you can see the clear inspirations for certain characters and who they're representing in real terms. And he done a brilliant job of it. Also, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, you see it again with the Manson murderers, or murders, not murderers. The family, and obviously the death of Sharon Tate, and how he addresses that and gives us an alternate reality where it doesn't happen. And you've got the hero stepping in. That's what I've always enjoyed about film, Stephen. It's escapism. And you kind of blur the lines with real life events. I enjoyed it, Stephen. That's not something I hate. And it's why I brought this up. And why, we were obviously
John.
What was that?
There is a satisfaction to those endings.
Yeah.
And I understand why he did it. But what I'm saying in terms of format, it's not the usual Tarantino way.
And you don't want
it usually does have. I mean, their original endings, don't get me wrong. Yeah. It's certainly something that I think when we were talking about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, when the news first came through that this was going to be his next film back in 2018 or whenever it was, we were talking about it. I was kind of nervous about the subject matter because we obviously knew the backstory of obviously Sharon Tate and the tragedy behind that. Yeah. And I thought, Tarantino's got this reputation, and I think it's an unjust reputation as well. And I think it comes off the back of Death Proof, where it had a lot of these activists that were out that hadn't seen the film, but it was exploitation, and this is a sexist film. They hadn't seen it yet. It hadn't come out. Word of mouth.
Hadn't seen how it empowered.
This was going to be very insulting to women, and you watch the film. It's not. The women are the heroes of the film.
This is something Quentin's faced even his whole career. He's faced that criticism from weak-minded fools, to quote Star Wars. These idiots seeking sort of, I don't know, rage baiting, if you'd like, try to mine off of and grift off of the ragers in society, usually liberal minds, to be fair, when it comes to Tarantino, constantly going on about violence and gratuitous violence in his movies. Well, he's quite rightly said in the past, famously on a Channel 4 interview, if you're not fucking happy, don't watch it. I'm not going to change the way that I make movies. I make them the way I make them. And if you like my kind of movies, you watch them. I don't think they're gratuitous in the violence. I think the violence is required. But Stephen, we'll get into that. We'll get into this as well. I want to just bring this up because I've got this on the side, a little sort of loose script that we're following here in terms of the discussion. We're kind of loosely sticking to it. And you touched on it, Stephen, with the endings of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and also the ending of blank on the other one, Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah.
He's almost in danger of becoming this soppy old fucking guy where he's trying to right the wrongs of the past, and he's lost that edge in a sense, potentially. In his own mind, he thinks he's lost the edge that he was renowned for early in his career, Stephen. So I think, I want to come back to the movie critic pot, because I can see where he's saying that there's clear connections with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You can see it, and I'll get to it, because it's based off a real life person, her life, her career, and not just her, but other individuals. I've seen him speak about this before in podcasts about movie critics back in the 70s, the 60s, the 80s. They almost had to carve out a career in adult magazines. There was a section in the middle of an adult magazine that was dedicated to film criticism and other things and arts. And they would have to work for these smutty magazines to try and get a name and carve out a career. You can see where he's going with that and where the pot may have lent itself to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, disenfranchised, unhappy with her career. But I'll get to that, Stephen. Early part of his career, man, this guy comes onto the scene and is just a fucking force of nature. Movies he's bringing out are incredibly violent, incredibly original. I wouldn't say they're incredibly violent, but at the time they probably were shooting people. That's another thing. We'll get into it, man. We'll talk about Reservoir Dogs, Stephen. They speak about this film being violent. By the way, your man passed away not long ago. That did the whole ear scene. I seen he passed away.
Michael. Yeah, I forget his name. Madsen, is it?
Yeah, he
remember.
passed away not long ago. I read that and I was like, fucking hell, that's a shame.
Yeah.
But that's one of the scenes they go on about, and it's almost like the Mandela effect.
Yeah, the ear cutting thing. Yeah.
People think that they've seen the ear getting cut off. The ear never, ever is shown getting cut off. It's all left to the audience to imagine it happening. There's music, there's a lot of violence in there, but you never see the ear getting cut off. I don't think his films are overly violent. I just don't. But obviously he did come onto the scene, Stephen, in the 90s. Really original filmmaking. You kind of touched upon it. Fairly simplistic plots, but really shaking up how to make a movie, perspectives and just interesting characters, really well written, interesting, engaging stories. What was your first interaction, Stephen, with Quentin? And also we'll bleed this into where he started, where he's developed as a director and the stories and how they've evolved and how that's kind of leading into the end of his potential filmmaking career, and how that may play into creative paralysis or whatever, because I still think in my mind, he said he's not, I've got a quote, I'll read it. I do think there is a degree, a sort of paralysis there, it's self-imposed, because he's putting all this pressure on this final fucking movie. Instead of just making great movies, he's now worrying about making a great movie.
Yeah, you know, I think he's got to get back into his 30, you know, what was it, 33 years ago Reservoir Dogs came out, so it's a long time, John, and he's not in the same place. It's very much like, you know, songwriters, like musicians, when they first break onto the scene, the first 2 albums are always the best ones, according to fans and critics, and after that they lose a little bit of their edge. And I'm not saying Quentin Tarantino's lost his edge after 2 films, certainly didn't, you know, but for him to keep up 9 really good films, you know, throughout that 30-year period is an achievement itself. But I think he's really just got to get back to basics. And I think for the movie critic, I think it was Angelina Jolie he had, you know, in mind for this role, and it would have been interesting in that sense. But I think the problem is if you read that synopsis for that film and you know who's getting cast for it, but he didn't announce it was his last film, you probably perhaps go, yeah, that sounds quite good. Oh, yeah, go for it, you know. Brilliant. Can't wait to see this. I think the emphasis on it being his last film is the problem here. I think that is the issue, John, because people are going, this has to be the best, then, Quentin, it has to come out, and it has to knock every other film that you did out the park, you know, it just has to be the best film that you've done, you know, and he should not have announced this was going to be his last movie. He should have maybe announced it once it was made, you know, not released to the public, but then came out and said, this is it, guys, last film, enjoy.
Yeah, you'll be wondering why I put
pen to paper, you know. He announced this 4 or 5 years ago, didn't he? So
he did, yeah.
I think if he could go back, perhaps maybe he might not have done that, but it is what it is, John. But in terms of obviously my first experience, just back to your question,
Steve, you'll be wondering why I brought this image up, by the way. Sorry to cut
I wasn't old enough to see Reservoir Dogs when it first came out. This was when films in Britain and the UK were really hard certified, when it was proper, you know, examined in terms of being an 18, very much like RoboCop of the day, you know, it was an 18. You should not be seeing this unless you're 18 or over.
I fucking watched it when I was 5.
You know, and it's you know, in terms of the violence, I think society's came a long way since 1992 in terms of what they accept and what they're shocked by as well. So we're it's easy for us to sit in 2025 and go, it's not that violent, but you know, you put yourself back in 1992, films like Reservoir Dogs and Russell Crowe, was it? It was in Romper Stomper, I can't remember. You know, they were the sort of big talking points. These films are absolutely shocking. But back in 1992, I remember someone saying to me, The Exorcist, it was banned in the UK. I saw that in 1992 and I wasn't fazed by it. I was not fazed by it.
Still not watched that.
I'm just trying to make a comparison in terms of the years gone by, John, and where we're at in our minds, you know, with what we accept in films and what we can sort of prepare ourselves for. I don't think there's any shock value in any films anymore, and I think the internet's got a lot to do with that.
Yeah, I mean, when you're seeing violence, literal violence on social media, every time you go on it, people getting their heads chopped off and ran over with trains and fucking electrocuted and stabbed, and I mean, that kind of desensitises you to what's happening in a film. All of a sudden, you really have to start chasing things in the film to shock people. And when you start going down that route, the Serbian movie or whatever it was called, I'm not interested in watching that kind of shit. I like violence in films when it's necessary. What I don't like is gratuitous violence. Yeah.
John, I like
violence.
You know what horrifies me? It's not anyone getting their heads chopped off or anything like that. There was this film in the 1970s, I think. Anyone watching this, if they are, you know, might know what I'm talking about. And if I've got the years wrong, you know, forgive me, let me know. There was this film, and I do want to see it. It was a very short film, and it was all about these phone boxes getting picked up. It was a Spanish film, I think. They were people were getting stuck in phone boxes, and these phone boxes were getting taken away, and the sort of story to it is that these people were getting taken away into this sort of cave or warehouse or something, and there's thousands of these phone boxes all lined up with people trapped in them.
Like
that's fucking horrifying to me. That's the kind of thing that fucks me up. But not
Chat GPT, it'll tell you what it is.
Yeah.
It'll tell you. It'll fucking tell you. Yeah, Stephen, I've always been more horrified by films like The Shining, where it was the same with me with kind of horror and whatnot, where people get scared with these jump scares and fucking ghosts and all that bollocks. I'm more disturbed by real human beings going batshit crazy, because that's something that can actually happen. You can be walking down the street, someone just flips and decides, I'm going to fucking kill this guy. So when you see, also Jack Torrance, that's his name, isn't it? I always think of the golfer, Sam Torrance.
Yeah. That's
flipping his fucking lid in the hotel and want to kill his kid and his wife, then that to me is more horrifying. And again, we go back to Kubrick, a phenomenal director, cut off the same cloth as Tarantino. High caliber output, limited output, doesn't serve up shit for the sake of it. You can see the connection. They do things for a reason. They're very clever in the way they create movies. Everything's handled to perfection for me. And Stephen, yeah, get back to Reservoir Dogs. First movie I ever seen from Quentin, incidentally, was Pulp Fiction. And to me, it's still one of my all-time favourite movies. Just everything about it, the way he balances the plot, the characters coming in and out of it, out of sync. Bruce Willis's character coming in, I hated the guy initially, then you turn right, you come round to him if you like. Everything about it is just so intelligent. I seen that before I seen the likes of Guy Ritchie, and that kind of shaped my enjoyment of film. I like multi-timeline, multi-perspective movies. I love it when it's done correctly, and Quentin was the first guy I seen do that as a child growing up. So I fucking love the guy. He's got a special place in my heart. Initially though, Stephen, in his career, you can see that the outputs, it's really original stuff. There's not really an interconnected universe at this point. You go forward 20, 30 years, it's the same sort of cigarettes, the same fast food chains. He's kind of created a semi-universe here where the films are residing. They're not clearly in the same universe, but there's little callbacks, and he's done something interesting. I do think he's explored different genres, almost like historical genres, and done the whole slave thing, done the Wild West kind of thing. He's done the kind of Death Proof thing. I don't know, man. There's only so far you can go with that before you start running out of ideas. As creatively brilliant as a guy is, how many times can you keep going back to the well and producing something fucking special? Eventually you have to do something different. It's the same with fucking Nolan.
Yeah.
He was doing all these great interesting movies, and then he had to go into historical stuff. He's had to do different things.
I would like to see Quentin Tarantino do a psychological thriller. Something twisted.
Steve, I'd like to see him do Star Trek R-rated. He was talking about that. I want to see an R-rated Star Trek movie.
The film's called La Cabina. It's a Spanish film. And it was it came out in 1972. It's a short film. It's not a long feature film or anything like that. But the concept of it, and it's just one of those things that I came across one time, and I just thought, I'd love Tarantino. I think it might have been when we were talking about him doing his final film, and I'd like to see him doing something very twisted, and maybe something that will make us feel uncomfortable and at the very end frustrate us. Like a bit of Arlington Road in there.
Yeah. Exactly.
Something like that. It's just something that's going to really frustrate the audience, to the point where it's got so much rewatchability, because that's one of the things I love about Arlington Road. You always want the ending to change, and it never does. But John, this film I'll just fill you in. So the film opens whimsically. Workers install a bright red phone booth in a public square. Passing by, the man steps inside to make a call, but the phone doesn't work, and the door locks behind him. Bystanders gather out of curiosity. Some comically try and fail to pry open the door, blending absurd comedy with growing unease. As desperation mounts, city phone workers arrive and haul the booth away, with the man still trapped inside. The journey takes them to this vast underground warehouse filled with countless similar booths containing the remains of previous victims. It's a nightmarish horror that delivers no answers, only dread. Finally, eerily, another phone booth is installed in the same square, ready for the next unsuspecting person.
So there
John,
is
I used to love. I loved watching the likes of the Twilight Zone and things like that. You know, things that were just Tales from the Crypt was another one. I think I told you about the one with Christopher Reeve and Meatloaf, didn't I?
Yeah, the pie. Yeah.
I think it was on YouTube for a while, and it's just things like that stay with you. It's unsettling. I think Tarantino's got that mind that can achieve something, very, not so much a short film, but something, over maybe an hour and a half or so, 2 hours. That's what I would like to see him do, because it's something that we've not seen him do, John. And you're right, we've seen him doing the westerns, we've seen him doing tackling the race issues, we've seen him. The funny thing about Death Proof is, and I was just when you mentioned that, I always think the time period of that was very 70s in the way it was shot, the effects, but they're using Nokia mobile phones, so it's a very strange sort of world, universe that he has created. But I would like to see him try something like that, something different.
Yeah, World's platform number 1, incidentally, hello. And thank you for watching us, mate, for 2 years. Appreciate it. Bahubali's still one of my favourite films from the Indian subcontinent. Rajamouli is a wonderful director. The guy's sort of visual stuff that he does, technically, his movies are stunning. The slow motion, 240 frames per second, slowed right down. You can see single drops of water. Guy's incredible what he did with that film. Stephen, you talk about multi-perspective, multi-timelines, father and son, spanning 2 movies. That was incredible. So yeah, thank you for coming in, mate. Appreciate it. Oh, Stephen, what he says about the twisted, unsatisfying ending, like an Arlington Road, that's something I'd love to see him doing. And I don't think he's ever did that before. You could maybe argue Pulp Fiction to an extent, because if you're a Vince Vega fan, then you're coming out of that movie very unsatisfied, like I did. Fucking Pop-Tarts. And I'm getting shot by... I still don't know the Bruce Willis character's name all these years later.
It was... now you've got me. It was Butch.
Butch. Vince Vega, and what the fuck was Samuel L's character called? I always forget his name as well. You've got Marcellus, Vince Vega. God, what's he called? It's on the tip of my tongue. But those 2 guys, man, I bonded with those 2 guys, and the way that they prefer, obviously, the way he structures the movie, he comes back, Vince. But that was kind of unsatisfying. But Stephen, that's a great shout. I want
to say Julius. Is it Julius or is it something like that? I can't remember. Jules Winfield.
Jules Winfield. Yeah, that's it. That'd be a great way to sort of answer critics who are saying he's got this sort of creative paralysis and he's going a little bit soppy, because again, you can get back into it. I mean, the guy started off this sort of zany, upcoming indie director, delivering incredibly complex, well, maybe not complex, but fucking interesting stories that were shaking things up, violent, winding people up, getting into interviews, combative, telling them, go and fuck yourself, essentially. I'll do what I want, it's my movies, I don't care if you're not happy about it. He's now a guy in his 60s and in his 50s in the past, making very different movies. They're still violent in their own way, but they're not like they were before. And also, as you do get older, you change as a human being. You do mellow out. Usually you become more conservative. You become a little bit more establishment.
Yeah.
And that changes the way that you're sort of... I mean, Stephen was speaking about Oasis just now. They're performing in Dublin. They're fucking incredible live just now. But if they go and create an album, you'll see that they're nowhere near what they were 30 years ago when they were doing Definitely Maybe and What's the Story and whatnot. They're completely different human beings. They've mellowed out. Liam's not this sort of rock and roll star, want to punch people's heads off. He changes a person, but that, what you said is interesting. That would be a way to answer the critics, by actually going full circle and not giving us a happy ever after. This is what could have happened if the good guys won, and instead giving us a twisted film where the bad guy wins at the end. Because I fucking love those movies. Those movies are sometimes the best movies. Because that's life. The good guy doesn't always win.
They do frustrate the hell out of you. I remember that experience I watched in Arlington Road. We've done a review on this channel, John. When it first was released, and just the frustration and shouting at the TV. It was on, obviously, DVD. We got it. Because I don't know if it got an actual broad release.
Tim Robbins is fucking phenomenal in that film.
But I think Jeff Bridges and Tim Robbins were just perfectly cast. And just the ending was so frustrating. Not so much the bad guys winning. It was more the perception of the good guys on when it was these people that knew him were getting interviewed, and they're skewing the sort of his characteristics, in a bad light. He was always talking about bombs and that kind. It was his whole sort of the memory of that guy is going to be whitewashed because of that one event, and it was nothing. Obviously, as viewers, we knew the truth, but it just frustrated the hell out of me because how many times has that probably happened, in history, in real life, So, but getting back to Tarantino, John, you got to remember this guy's movie knowledge, and it because you've watched enough interviews with him. Some obscure songs that he'll mention, from 50 years ago, that he can recite lines from. The guy's a walking, talking IMDb, So in terms of source and inspiration, it's there. But I think this is more to do with legacy than anything. His legacy, and whatever it's going to be, it will be the last, unfortunately. But
I was going to ask you that.
I think a bit of pressure on himself by announcing that.
Yeah, I mean, Stephen, I just don't understand it. I was going to ask you that, and I'm going to get into this movie critic because the more I'm looking at it, the AI's got me fucking convinced that it should be getting made. It shouldn't be his last movie. Yeah. I don't agree with the decision to scrap it, personally. I'm quite happy to see another sort of soapy, happily ever after kind of story from Tarantino, as long as it's not his last. I did say that, we were talking about it before I set the stream up and whatnot. I'm like, you know what, I didn't mind the concept, but I don't want it to be his last movie. But Stephen, I don't want Tarantino to stop making movies. I'm a fan of the guy, I always have been. Even Kevin has fucking been in an interview situation and a Q&A and spoke with him. So we all love Quentin, and you've not got enough good directors of his standing, Paul Thomas Anderson, fucking Chris Nolan, Denis Villeneuve, those kind of calibre of directors out there just now, to be losing someone at 62. He's still a relatively young age. Yeah. He can still create these movies. Look at fucking Clint Eastwood, the guy. I mean, you can argue again, he's an example of films losing their edge, because I quite like Juror Number 2, but it's not like his other movies. But I want to see this guy continuing to make movies for a long time. I don't understand this artificial need to stop at 10. I do understand he's saying you can drop off a cliff, but he's not showing any signs. I dropped off a cliff. He's got a little bit more soapy. It's not as maybe revolutionary as what it was back in the 90s, but he's still making high calibre films. So I personally don't understand this notion of getting out after 10. I'm not convinced a guy that closely attached to film, the medium of filmmaking, writing scripts and all these interesting stories, I can't envisage that guy ever being able to step away.
It's like Johnny's saying it's his last film in terms of directing, but who knows whether or not he'll still be in the background as a producer or a writer, for that matter. So I don't know if maybe it's just a change in his life, that he's just decided, that he's what is there more to achieve, in this career, in this profession. I don't know. I don't think we'll know that for sure until he is fully retired.
The talk was Broadway, wasn't it? He was going to do sort of stage productions. Because he kind of dabbled with that with the Hateful Eight.
He's not going to put the pipe and slippers on. I don't think it's that kind of retirement. I think it's just in terms of being a director and being at the forefront. Quentin Tarantino's 10th film, it's always been one of those things that, for the past 30 years, just when there's a film coming out by Quentin Tarantino, you get very excited about it, John. And it's only been 6 years ago. Obviously, maybe about 7 or 8 years ago when it was announced, when we first saw those sort of still images of Leonardo DiCaprio and Brad Pitt, we were very excited what was coming. And, it'll be the same for this film as well. But I'm going to miss that because he is an event director. When Death Proof came out, I was very excited because it was a double feature with the Robert Rodriguez Planet Terror, another sort of unique situation that they were trying to recreate the 1970s sort of matinee films where you know, you would go to the Saturday sort of drive-in, the Americana thing, and watch two features. But unfortunately, society had moved on and didn't have the attention to sit through two-hour films, you know, at that time.
Steve, I'd
But I
fucking
thought the
love that
concept
though.
was fantastic.
I wish we
I
stayed.
love Planet Terror as well.
And I loved it too. But I wish we stayed in a climate where all year long you could go and watch a film outside in one of those sort of outside cinema.
Drive-throus, yeah.
Yeah, they'd be fucking
Drive-ins,
incredible.
I should say.
Can you imagine growing up in like California or something and having that as a sort of routine? Go out and it's nice and it's maybe not cool, but it's kind of cool down a bit. You've got a nice wee breeze in the air, just sitting having a drink, man, watching the film. That'd be fucking amazing. We never get that. But where's that shit? We just cannot have good things like that. That's why I relish this time of the year. Going to the football last night with a t-shirt and shorts on. It's night time, you're sitting chilling. What a fucking time to be alive when the weather's like this. I love it. And I was literally saying that going out to the stadium. I wish it was like this all the time. This is where I belong, in weather like this, not in this fucking hellhole of a country like it is 90% of the time. But Stephen, that's neither here nor there.
No, but funnily enough, you mentioning that, it reminds me of your Cliff Booth moment, with Harley.
Yeah, it was August.
At the very end of the film, he takes his dog for a walk with obviously the acid soaked cigarette.
I've been there.
You weren't.
I'm not on acid, but I mean, I've been.
You were drinking alcohol.
I've been out walking my dog, absolutely fucking gone on vodka. Having conversations with people that ask me what kind of breed he is. I can't even say Labrador. I can't even say the word. I'm that fucking steaming on alcohol. So I've been out and I've lived that, man, and I connected with the guy. He's loved with the dog, where he was in life, and just being up in that sort of setting, walking the dog, man, it's a lovely night. I'm like, this is fucking great. And then the time we were watching it was round about late summer, and I'm out walking my dog, and I'm like, this is just great. That's what Tarantino does, man. You've got escapism, but almost it's grounded in reality in some strange way, and it just makes you appreciate. I don't know, it's weird, maybe I'm getting a little bit twatty, but when I watch the guy's movies, it makes me appreciate life in general all the more, and I think that's what great art does.
I love those moments in Tarantino films, the ordinary stuff.
Yeah.
Talking about
the fucking strudel, Stephen, and Inglourious Bastards. The strudel.
Yeah.
It's a simple little scene, but it's got so much depth and so much sort of complex. I can't even fucking speak. I was about to say complication. It's complex and it's deep, and there's meanings going on in there. The stubbing the cigarette out and stuff like that. The cream, the sort of the stuff they used back then to make strudel. I think there was byproducts of certain animals, and obviously the character's Jewish. He can't eat it, and he knows that. He's well cottoned on. He's completely in touch with everything that's happening around about him. It's just the simple little things. It just elevates the movie. It's so dense, and if you've got a keen eye, there's so much you can catch in the guy's movies. But Stephen, man, looking at the release dates, I'm going to get back to what I said earlier in the discussion about the time. 6-year gap, is it a sign of creative block? Because you look at the guy's first proper release, Reservoir Dogs, 1992. Second movie comes out 2 years later, Pulp Fiction. We're ignoring this shit because this doesn't fucking count. Jackie Brown, 3 years later, 1997. Yeah. Kill Bill's almost like a double movie. It's a bit of a gap, to be fair, it's 6 years. But that's almost like a reimagining of Quentin at that point. You then dive on to Grindhouse, I'm going to say Death Proof. It's a 3-year gap. Then it's a shite at mathematics, clearly. I'm trying to work out the gap. It's a 2-year gap. That should be very simple to work out, John. For fuck's sake, son. 3-year gap, 3-year gap, and then it's a 4-year gap. So the longest gap he's ever had is 6 years. And that's between films releasing.
You could say Kill Bill was 2 films, though, to be fair. You know, so
no, but I mean between Jackie Brown to Kill Bill. But you understand what you're saying, he's making 2 films, so that's why there's a gap. But even then, Stephen, that's the film's releasing. We're now 6 years out from his last movie. He's canned the current one that was meant to be coming out. We don't know where he's at in terms of development. We're now out into uncharted waters in terms of how long we're having to wait for a Tarantino movie. And I do question, he said, I'm going to bring the fucking quote up on, heard it. It's not heard it in this case because he literally fucking says it. It's his word. It's not my words. It's a little crazy to listen to podcasts and hear all these amateur psychiatrists psychoanalyse as if they fucking know what they're talking about what's going on with me, about how I'm so scared, all right, of my 10th film. He then goes on to do an impersonation. I can't do it because I'm not Quentin. Oh my God, I'm so fragile about my legacy. What's going on? I'm paralysed with fear. I'm not paralysed with fear, trust me. Prove it, Quentin. You're a big ride. Prove it. We're 6 years out. We're not even get a film announced. You've canned the last one. I think you're fucking creative block, mate. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm getting concerned because we're into uncharted waters. It's the longest we've had to wait.
I think you're trying to goad him onto this show.
I'd love Quentin to be watching this and actually understand us and come on. I would fucking love to speak to Quentin Tarantino. The guy's my sort of cinematic hero. Love the guy in every way. That's why I want to see him continue making movies. That's why I want him to just cut all this notion of ending after 10 films. He's putting almighty pressure on himself to get this last film to such a standard where he goes out with a bang and everyone views him as a sort of modern day Kubrick. I say modern day. Kubrick finished with fucking eyes wide shut, didn't he? And it was only about 20 odd years ago. So he was technically still in the modern day. But he's put all this pressure on himself needlessly. If he did what you said, Steve, just continued making great movies and then just slid out the door after he'd released the film and said afterwards, that's me done, it'd have been different.
Yeah, I mean, because the expectations going to go up, John, with the audience, you know, and how they resonate with this final product from him. And, you know, I don't have any issues in terms of the Movie Critic being a Tarantino film and if it was coming out as a release, say, next year. But we know if it was, and we knew if that was what the road he was going to take, we knew it was going to be the last film. It might not have been, it might have been the greatest film, we just don't know. You know, we wouldn't know that anyway. But, yeah, I mean, we'll have to wait and see. But John Assie's going back to, as we mentioned at the start of this show, is going back to the drawing board or the writing board, if you like. So you're talking 6 years since the last release. It's going to be at least another 2 years now. If he starts writing now, you know, it's going to be at least 2 years, and that will be about 8 or 9 years by that point. So yeah, it's just
I view it, and I think he's put too much pressure on himself. Now he's overthinking it. Like I said previously, instead of making great movies, he's now thinking about making a great movie. It was so simple for the guy.
Well, I don't think this is the first and last time he's ever pulled an idea away, you know, from his thoughts and went, "No, I'm not doing that."
Everything's getting analysed now.
Yeah, but I think just the emphasis on this project now is going to be very intense, you know, and everyone is waiting. Everyone is anticipating this film. I mean, we always anticipate a Tarantino film anyway, but yeah, it's just unnecessary pressure, if you like, if that's what you like to call it. I know he's saying he's not feeling the pressure, he's not feeling the fear, but there must be an element of anxiety in this as well. There's got to be
Kylo Ren. Liar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stephen, I brought this image up.
Psychological, John. I would love to see him do something like that.
No, but Stephen, I want to see the guy continue making movies for fucking the rest of his life. I don't want the guy to stop. I don't. Fuck this 10 movie bollocks, man. Just keep bringing him out, giving us great movies. He's one of the true event directors. There's not many left. He's one of the guys that makes you stop what you're doing and think, I'm going to the theatres, because this guy's brought a film out. And there's not many like that left. So we can't be losing guys like this. I brought this image up, Stephen. This is Pauline Kael. Pauline Kael. I think that's how you say her name. That was who the Movie Critic was loosely based off. You said that he was talking about casting Angelina Jolie. Now, no harm to Pauline. I'm not disparaging her looks, but she couldn't be as fucking far removed from Angelina Jolie if you tried. In terms of looks, I mean, she looks more like the the sort of helper in Father Ted. Would you like a cup of tea, Father? Go on. Come on, a cup of tea, Father. She looks like
Mrs. Doyle.
Mrs. Doyle, yeah. She fucking...
John, I've got a comment, by the way.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that little fucking bastard she's got in her arms. I get bit with a Jack Russell the other day, so I've got nothing but hatred in my heart for those four-legged demons. Little fucker. Daniel Velez says, I wonder if Quentin will make a movie set in contemporary day again. Well, that's another interesting one, isn't it? Because he has been getting a little bit historical. And obviously with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, you can understand it. He's got the opportunity. He's at a certain standing in his career where he can effectively shut off huge swathes of Los Angeles, his hometown, and call back to his childhood and deliver a really complex, tragic kind of what could have been story with Sharon Tate, with these fictional characters intermixing, much like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood again. So you can let him away with it. The Hateful Eight, I fucking loved the film to an extent. There was elements of it that nearly bored me to sleep. Some of the talking stuff was a little too talky, but I still loved it. It's certainly on a visual level. Obviously, Django is a historical film, really enjoyed it. But then I think of his films, Stephen, and is there... I mean, you could argue that they're fucking timeless in terms of the timeline. There's none of his movies are ever really set in the current day. You touched upon it. There's always some element that makes them feel strangely out of time. You think of Death Proof, it feels like a 70s movie, but it's set in the early 2000s or 90s. So I think he deliberately sets his movies up in a way where they're never really in the modern time, or they're never really in a historical period where you can say for sure that's then. There's always something, you know what I'm saying? There's always something different.
But that's deliberate. I think in terms of, like as you mentioned, Pulp Fiction as well, Reservoir Dogs could sit anywhere in between the 1960s and the 1990s. You know, just, you know, in terms of his choice of aesthetics, unless it's like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which is a historical event, or Inglourious Basterds, which is a historical period, the other films could be set, you know, at any time. You know, you look at the costumes, you look at the cars.
Basterds is like a fucking Kung Fury kind of thing, though, but it's like an alternate reality entirely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just fucking, it's created a different universe. It's like a pocket universe. Sorry, I interfered by you talking there, Stephen.
I just think in terms of, obviously, I think that's deliberate choice by Tarantino. You know?
Yeah, I had to take her off the screen there, sorry, Pauline. Steve, again, the reason I'm bringing it up, I just want to get back to this script, man, because when you look at what the AI, Google AI is doing, I don't know what fucking AI they are using. At this point, I've lost the plot with AI. I used AI to create the thumbnail, incidentally. Those images of Tarantino never existed. They are AI constructs. I don't know if the guy smiled enough looking into a camera to make that work, but I made it work somehow. Not my best thumbnail, but it did. You look at what they're breaking down here, Stephen, you can see the clear connections with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's rumoured to be about Pauline Kael, prominent film critic. Quentin knew of her from his earlier days. She was working for this pornographic magazine. You can see the influences, potentially Taxi Driver, this sort of seedy environment. Characters feels mentally in a not so great place. And how you could have formulated that script where they become more and more disconnected from reality, upset about their living situation, and maybe they go down a route where they start fucking doing something and it goes off-piste. It starts off based on a semi-real person, but it becomes an alternate reality again, much like Inglourious Basterds and Once Upon a Time. I think it could have worked. And I like this in particular, the metaverse potential, where you could have had previous actors who had worked for Tarantino putting himself in the movie again, as he always does, as a director, being critiqued by this movie critic, and you're maybe incorporating his past movies. That's just something that would have been so fucking cool to see. But sadly, it's not happening.
I mean, it would have been unique, John. And we've seen, you know, in terms of, I mean, it's almost Inception, isn't it? You know, sort of concept, but, you know, I don't know if audiences accept that, though, you know, in terms of sort of suspending that reality for, you know, Tarantino's legacy within his own sort of final film as well. To an extent, you know, John, if you ever watched Red Dwarf, and, you know, I was a massive fan of Red Dwarf, as you know, and I know you are, but they did an episode.
Watch that final episode.
They did an episode where it was called Back to Earth, and it had been away for so long, you know, in terms of the episodes, a good decade or so, when they came back, where they they stepped into Coronation Street. As the actors Craig Charles and it was a bit of an Inception sort of thing on. And the Red Dwarf fans, not a lot of them liked it. I didn't mind it, but just could not buy into it at all. It was too much, too close to reality, for their liking. And the fans like what they like because it's escapism and the humour's there as well. And it's kind of going a bit too deep in terms of what they were trying to achieve, and a lot of fans just couldn't resonate with it at all. So you've got to be very careful in terms of what you're doing, in terms of your own legacy, and not being too self-indulgent.
Yeah,
because a lot of fans don't like that either.
Stephen, where would you rank? Yeah, I mean, you're right. Where would you rank, kind of getting into Tarantino's legacy? Obviously, we're discussing the guy potentially coming to the end of his time as a filmmaker. Where would you place him? Would you say that he is one of the last true sort of, I don't know, we're using the word auteur. I don't know how you even say that. One of the last truly creatively unique directors, because we're in an era with Hollywood where it's just rehashing old franchises and quasi-sequels and fucking...
That's not the director's fault. It's not any current director's fault for the industry and where it's at. That's down to studios and board of directors. Money comes first before creativity and the arts.
Cash rules everything around.
I think Tarantino came out at the right time, John. He came out, you think of some of the great directors that came out round about that time and are before or just after. Robert Rodriguez being one of them as well. And I know he's a good friend of Quentin Tarantino. But you've also got the likes of, films like Clerks, which was another unique film for its day as well, which just wouldn't work now. It's your man, Silent Bob. I'm blanking on his name.
Kevin Smith.
Kevin Smith, yeah. Very unique storytelling, very unique format to the films as well. And it is a product of the 1990s, Quentin Tarantino. I know he continued into the 2000s and the 2010s with some great films, but I just think it's harder for directors now to sort of put their stamp on films the way that he could, and I know he's got leeway because of how big a director he is. But in terms of where I put him, in terms of my lifetime and only my opinion, I think he's probably the greatest director in my lifetime in terms of consistency over his work. I can rhyme off the likes of perhaps maybe Robert Zemeckis because Back to the Future's, in my opinion, the best film I've ever seen. But that's one film. Do you know what I mean? Quentin Tarantino over those 9 films over 30 years are a very high standard, and he has set the bar for himself to always improve on the last film. The problem he's got is he's only got one more shot at it, and he's put himself in that position. So it's tough. It really is tough because it's the last time he's going to do this.
I can't think of another director in my lifetime, going back to 1989, that's better. Out with maybe Nolan, but then I just, as much as I enjoy Nolan, Tarantino, there's just something about a Tarantino movie that just gets, there's a vibe about it. There's an essence about his movies that I think that elevate them over a Nolan movie.
I'm a big fan of Nolan, but I've got to say, Oppenheimer wasn't his best work.
Yeah.
And then I go back to Memento. I don't know if it was his first film or it was the first film I saw. He did Memento, didn't he? It wasn't him, with Guy Pearce.
I think he did do
It was
Memento,
okay.
yeah.
It wasn't a great film, but it was a great independent film. But it wasn't at the same sort of levels as his sort of other work, But no, Tarantino for me consistently, it's just been at a high standard. Even the ones where Jackie Brown, where a lot of people perhaps didn't like it, but a lot of people love it as well. I think it's his best film, so...
They're just those off-piece kind of skiers, though. Yeah, I'm not going with the mainstream crowd. I'm going to go off-piece, potentially break my neck, but I'll do it just because I can be different. Jackie Brown's not his best film. Come on, fuck. Behave. I know it's subjective, but behave yourself. We get it, you want to be edgy. But Stephen, you look at the directors over the last, fucking 60, 70 years. I'm going through a list just now. Sergio Leone, John Ford, obviously, I think he did The Silent Man. One of my grandfather's favourite films. That was The Silent Man, wasn't it? The one with fucking John Wayne. The Quiet Man. Quiet Man. It's got like a fucking 10, 15-minute fight sequence. That was my sort of upbringing, sitting with my grandfather watching these movies, all the classic war movies. You think of the likes of Clint Eastwood and Alfred Hitchcock and Kubrick and all those great directors.
Yeah.
I think he's in contention with these guys. I think he's up there in the conversation with these guys. So ultimately, you go on about 10 movies and creative block. I don't actually think the guy, in terms of his legacy, requires a 10th movie. Even if he released a 10th movie and it was to be under par for his high standards, I don't think it damages his legacy in any way, shape or form. I think his legacy is already guaranteed, because there's very few people consistently put out movies at the calibre he has done over his entire career, who've got the knowledge of film and that sort of goodwill from not just fans but most critics, except for those sort of liberal fucking idiots who want to criticise everything for the sake of criticising it. I think he's cemented himself as one of the great directors already. I don't think he has to worry about it. So ultimately, what I'm saying, Quentin, is
John,
just
if he ended
bring
on
a film out, mate.
John, if he ended on Jackie Brown, he would still be remembered as one of the great directors, because Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, and Jackie Brown are such memorable films and very unique and original. So even if he brought out just those three first films, it would still have, people would remember him, as one of the greatest filmmakers. I think so anyway. Everything that came after it was fantastic, but yeah, the guys, just his quality of storytelling more than anything.
Yeah,
How many times have you just sat and listened to the conversation in the film? There's one in Death Proof which always amazes me. I don't know how long it is. I can't remember. I've not seen the film in a long time, but it's almost 7 or 8 minutes of a one shot, and the camera's revolving around the table with the girls talking. Rosario Dawson's one of them. Her group of friends, and Ewan McGregor's wife. I can't remember her name.
Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
And the camera's just going round and round, and they're all doing their dialogue. It's phenomenal.
That's what makes his movie, Stephen. It's a sort of talky kind of movie, but it is really well written dialogue. It's organic. The characters feel like they're real. They've lived a life. They've got stories to tell, and you bond with them. And that's what makes the film so enjoyable, because you're living vicariously through these characters. Some movies try it and they fail, but you bond with them. And then when they get the moment with Stuntman, is it Mike? Is that what his name is? Or is that the Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Stuntman Mike, I think it was.
Stuntman Mike, yeah. When he gets his comeuppance, you're fucking actually up. Yeah. Fist pumping, like Richard D. Grant. I punched the air, I stood in crap tips, absolutely astonished. Something somebody said about The Last Jedi or the fucking Rise of Skywalker. What a shite, Richard. Astonished my arse. Love you as well, mate, as an actor. Just for the Shaun of the Dead scene alone. Fucking amazing. But you were talking absolute pish, mate, when you said that. You whooped and clapped and cheered into the air. What a shite. But anyway, I digress. I did that in Death Proof. So, Stephen, he's a unique director. But, Stephen, talking about the influence, before we kind of round this up and sort of reflect on the conversation we've had, if you like, again, getting twatty, speaking like that. Stephen, you talk about his influence in films and also the music and whatnot of Pulp Fiction and other sort of films. I think of the adverts, the sort of commercial stuff in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He was almost doing the James Gunn thing before James Gunn did it, where he was introducing all this incredible music, even the fucking intro to Death Proof.
Knowledge is something else, and it's funny you should mention this, John, and maybe it's been subconscious on my mind to use this as the sort of topic, but I went down this rabbit hole, and it's pretty sad. But I went down this rabbit hole. I listened to Keith Mansfield numbers, all because of Funky Fanfare. You know, our feature presentation music. This guy was phenomenal. He did some of the most memorable themes in terms of Grandstand. And you know, the number of a phenomenal composer, and I mean, Funky Fanfare is fantastic. It's one of those, just, it's so groovy.
His utilisation of music is fucking almost unparalleled. And it used to be a trademark. I don't know if it still is now, to be fair, but I remember back in the 2000s, you used to wait for his films to come out to think of how he was going to utilise music. Death Proof, obviously, was it Chick Habit or something like that? I forget the name.
Yes, I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's just that song. Use of music is iconic. And again, just fucking colourful characters. You think of John Travolta, the guy was a joke before Pulp Fiction came out. He'd lost all sort of momentum. He was this joke figure. He saved his career. Saved his fucking career. And again...
John Travolta was fantastic, John.
Yes, he is fantastic. But he's absolutely astonishing in Pulp Fiction. He's my favourite character in the whole film. And again, it's the dialogue, the back and forth. You could say it's just unnecessary, but it fills the characters out and you connect with them and bond with them. And that, then you have...
Fiction too.
What was that?
I'm just reading Daniel's comment now.
Yeah, I've not even seen it. Yeah, Pulp Fiction 2, oh God, yeah, fuck yeah. Vince Vega coming back from the dead. That's the only way they can make that work. Do a backstory of what else the two guys get up to. But Stephen, you think of the back and forth between them as well, man. It's just, that's what makes his films pop. I just feel like he's this really unique figure in film. And ultimately that sort of niche he carved out in his career up until present day, that's set his legacy. He doesn't have to worry about fucking releasing epic films. I mean, we've kind of joked about it, creative bottom. I mean, I do think he has got a bit of creative bottom, but he doesn't need to create a phenomenal film. Fuck the pressure, Quentin. You've already set your legacy in stone. Final thoughts, Stephen. I mean, we're saying that I've got a sort of thing here that we were kind of loosely adhering to. Is his greatest contribution the films themselves, so the way he made people fall in love with cinema again? And I think for me, growing up, I never fell out of love with cinema, but certainly getting to see guys like that in my sort of formative years and getting into my teenage years and getting to witness Tarantino and what he gave to cinema, that gave me an appreciation. My first ever film I seen in a theatre was Spielberg. That's The Fly. Blame The Fly, Stephen. It was Jurassic fucking Park. It was Jurassic Park. It was the first film I seen in a The first film I seen in a theatre was Steven Spielberg, so the bar was set fucking high. But then I got to see Tarantino growing up. So for me, the guy has left an indelible mark on me as a film fan. So, I mean, like I says, without rehashing, the guy, what he's contributed to film, I can't think of many people that touch it. So, yeah, I mean, for me...
I don't think so, John, because I think in terms of, this will probably be my last word, but in terms of getting into that cinema and getting into a Tarantino film, there's not many filmmakers, in fact, I don't think there's any that I've experienced in the theatre that can do what he does and make a theatre just sit and intensely watch dialogue because he's so good at it. And coming away from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, that last sort of 2-3 minutes where the DiCaprio character is introduced to Sharon Tate, it's quite moving in a way, and he's very good at doing that. Alternate reality, and that's the way it should have been. It's if we were wishing anything, it would have been the way it should have played out for that particular woman, but it didn't. But it was just very moving and quite sad in a way, and that Tarantino's very good at doing that. But I think in terms of what's coming, in the next few years, his so-called final film. We'll just have to wait and see. Certainly on our news show, we'll have our ears to the ground to cover that. But I wouldn't have minded the movie critic, is one of his collection of films.
Just not the last.
It's a very interesting concept, but the last one, I'm not really sure.
But again, Stephen, if he hadn't put this sort of restriction on films coming out, then he could have released it. And then if it was fantastic, brilliant. If it wasn't, well, I mean, he's released fucking 9 other fantastic films, then he could end in another film. He's put artificial restrictions on. Stephen, just the last thing I'd say, in terms of dialogue, it came to my head there when you were talking about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You think of the Manson family coming up the driveway, and he's creating this sort of iced, what the fuck was it, a pina colada?
Yeah.
And obviously Rick Dalton's
Margarita.
a nice margarita. Rick Dalton's in his house coat. He's like, these goddamn fucking hippies, and he goes out and shouts at them with the margarita still in his hand. And you get this mechanical asshole off him out of my street or something. That's the dialogue we're talking about here. The callbacks to his career, the flamethrower, the detail, that's what the guy brings. So, look, I'm all for honouring the guy's wishes. If he wants to go out with 10 and he wants to go out in the highest possible fucking high imaginable, then that's barely English. Then fair play. You wait off until you get the best conceivable plot and film and cast to bow out in a high. I respect the guy, he's earned the right. So, I still think he's got creative block though. So, Quentin, deal with it, mate, get over it. See a therapist, make sure you get over it and get that film out ASAP. Because I'm growing impatient, mate. I don't want to be 40 by the time you release your next movie, Quentin. So can we fucking make that happen, son? But anyway, ultimately, Stephen, we've went over an hour, which is fucking astonishing. Again, Stephen strikes again in terms of the conversational podcast topics. He sent me a little message earlier saying, John, you're going to have to fucking help me here, son. I'm doing all the heavy lifting when it comes to picking topics. And my retort was, but you're pretty good at it. And he struck again, he's over an hour.
We'll see when the views come in.
Yeah, well, I mean, come in, Stephen. It's all about the enjoyment and the conversation, the discourse. But what's your thoughts on Quentin Tarantino? What's your thoughts on the movie critic getting canned? Do you think he is creatively paralysed at the moment? Where do you see it playing out for Quentin? Is he putting too much pressure on himself with this final movie? Do you want to see him ending at 10? Share your thoughts on Quentin, his career, favourite film of his, what impact he had on you throughout his career making phenomenal films. Anything you want to share about the conversation we've had, pop it down below in the comment section. That's the place to put your thoughts. Like the video if you've enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon to get notifications. Same thing over on Twitch, follow button, notifications button over there to see us live on a different platform, saying the exact same thing, doing the exact same content, but it's on Twitch. Thank you for the comments, and until the next time, what's really to be said, I can't even fucking speak. That's the Guinness going straight to my brain. Let's try that again. All that's left to be said, that was the word I was looking for, is thank you for watching this, and bye-bye. Try not end the stream here, guys. Mute.